Morning to everybody present today. On my own personal behalf, on behalf of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research and Department of Agriculture Research and Education, Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India, I extend a very hearty welcome to every one of you from the country and from elsewhere abroad who have linked themselves to this particular international symposium on spices as flavors, fragrances, and functional foods. My colleague, Dr. Pandey, Assistant Director General, Horticulture Sciences, Director of Indian Institute of Spice Research, Dr. J. Rema, Director of Seed Spice Research Institute, Dr. Gopal Lal. I am told Chairman Spice Board is also there. So also I am told there are dignitaries from various institutions of the country who are associated with this particular program. Various societies which were spoken about who have been in the forefront, and we have been collaborating, organizing this particular program. All these scientist colleagues, all researchers, those who are linked to spice industry, particularly export, processing and value addition, all the delegates from various countries who are linked, who would be participating in 3 days deliberation, representatives of press and media. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to be here in this particular conference and symposium, and also give my address. Unfortunately, the Honorable Chief Guest and honored guests have not been able to join. You all know, particularly for my international colleagues and delegates, this is the time of our parliament session, and the parliament is deliberating on very important issues, particularly with regard to the address of Honorable President of India. There are long deliberations and many issues pertaining to agriculture are being discussed. And because of that, Honorable Ministers have not been able to actually join today. So we are here to organize without them, particularly the inaugural session. So in their absence, we will go ahead. They have their blessings. They have their good wishes communicated for success of this international conference. The other notable person who is who has been participating in some other meeting is our Deputy Director General, Horticulture Science. He was also supposed to attend. So somehow, because of other very urgent and important meeting, he is also not here. Never mind. So our program was supposed to be there in the evening, and it was shifted to the morning session. And we have very limited participation at, this morning because of this change of time. This inaugural session certainly, despite limited presence, would provide the kind of outline for further deliberation which is going to happen, engaging with not only those who are working in the country, but those who are from abroad, from centers of excellence. Spices, we all know, and this country in particular, for a pretty long time have remained a very important component of our food system. They are not consumed in very high quantity at one go, but certainly they are consumed almost routinely in this country. And also various other countries where spices have found their way to the kitchens and the dining tables. We have an array of spice crops in this country which are grown, which are consumed, which are processed, marketed, value added, and also exported. Country produces about 9 million tons of spices. The requirement of the country is being met and the surpluses are being exported. This country has been quite progressive in the front of agricultural research, not only the crops, but also in allied sectors, for instance, animal husbandry and fishery, and contributing very significantly in the process to the national developments and also contributing to meeting the global needs. Our export, based on the surpluses has gone beyond 35 billion US dollar. And this export we could enable because of increased production, which we could not do 60 years ago. In fact, in 60s and 70s, 1960s and 70s, we were importing many items which were essential for feeding the human population, particularly the food items. Today, we have excelled not only in producing enough food, but also producing enough quantity of milk. Our milk production is, in fact, #1 with regard to quantity in the world. And the growth rate is quite high, more than 6%. And that is something which is remarkable. And you don't see anywhere in the world more than 6% growth in the dairy sector. Similarly, with regard to fish, we are exporting. Growth is more than 10%. Annual growth is more than 10%. That's something which is, again, praiseworthy and noteworthy. And we are exporting, earning in the process more than $7 billion annually. The horticulture production in this country has been increasing. It has also surpassed the food production almost 9-10 years ago. Today, our horticulture production is close to around 320 million tons, and food grain is about 295 million tons. So that's the kind of difference this country has made over decades. Research and development has contributed to the scenario which has been built. New technologies have gone to the field. New varieties, management practices have gone to the farmers. They have utilized all these to bring in a revolution, starting with green revolution, a rainbow kind of revolution, whether it is horticultural revolution or milk revolution, that's white revolution, or blue revolution with regard to fish production, and so on and so forth. We were lagging behind, we are lagging behind with regard to edible oils, and our efforts, persistent efforts, are continuing to address those needs. Coming back to horticulture, it's not just that we have enhanced production, but also our productivity has increased. And in recent years, we have focused on developing varieties. More than 300 varieties we have developed during past 6-7 years in various horticulture crops, focusing on more of climate resilience, building in multiple stress tolerance into the varieties. And the second one being creating newer ones with value and developing biofortified crop varieties in horticulture crops. Horticulture crops are rich in many different elements which are essential for nutrition, whether it is antioxidant levels, whether it is immune boosting compounds, whether it is vitamins, and many others, carbohydrate, energy, and of course, in certain cases, even protein. So given their contribution to nutritional security, and in fact, in current scenario, the health security, so the horticultural crops have tremendous significance in this country. And that's the reason why the government schemes have been brought about to promote horticultural crops. The 9 million tons that I was referring with regard to production of spices, that places us in a very comfortable position. And that has enabled us to export and increase our export very significantly. 8% in terms of volume and 10% in terms of rupee terms and 8% in terms of dollar. So we have been able to increase our export, which is around 1.2 million tons. And it has crossed the target which was set for the year 2019-20. By way of this export of spices, we are earning more than $3 billion. That happened in 2020. This is something which is very, very significant. And this trend is hopefully it would continue. The spices, we have two institutes who are participating in this international conference, international symposium. Indian Institute of Spice Research, Calicut, and also Institute on Seed Spices, that's located at Ajmer, Rajasthan, India. The roles are very distinct. The crops are very distinct. And we keep on innovating on new challenges, to face the new challenges by way of developing new technologies. The state of Madhya Pradesh, which has recorded highest production of spices in recent years, followed by Rajasthan and Gujarat. There has been tremendous progress in these states, and other states are really coming up and striving to excel in spices production. 2020 was the COVID year. The tormenting COVID is still continuing. Its threats looming large and threatening the very civilization. Millions of people suffering, dying globally. That is something which is very, very worrisome. Today, we worry for coronavirus. Though there were some doubts, there are still some doubts that the coronavirus, which is spread all across the globe, is a man-made, laboratory-made one. But there are also contradictory counter viewpoints telling that it's natural in origin and coming from animals, the birds. And today we all know and we are worried about the bird flu. Again, that's also another problem which affects the respiratory system, in the process creating a syndrome. The respiratory syndromes, and these are all part of the whole scenario which has been built over a few decades. And many of these coming from animals and birds, and threatening the very existence of human civilization, and the human health system is actually, rocked, shaken because of the impacts of these viruses. Climate is changing, temperature is rising, the greenhouse gases are increasing in the environment. And there are many other associated problems. Newer pests and diseases are emerging, not only in case of animals and birds, but also in case of plants, and of course, ultimately impacting the human. And that's the reason why at a global level, there is increased emphasis on One Health. How do we really address this problem of human and save the civilization today and also in days to come? When we talk of emergence of new diseases, coronavirus is one such disease. COVID-19 is one such disease. And similarly, in India, we have seen in recent times the entry of the African swine fever in case of swine. An insect which is fall worm entering India from Africa. So transboundary problems are far more acute today, and we are encountering such problems more frequently. Few years ago, there was a problem of wheat. The disease wheat blast impacted wheat in Bangladesh, the nearby country. We tried all measures in our border areas, tried to contain, and in a very proactive manner, we identified resistant material by screening at the international hotspots and breeding in the process new varieties, identifying new varieties which have been deployed now so that our country's food production system is safeguarded. I have gone a bit away from the theme of the symposium, although it appears that way, but I'm focusing on the issue, which is the core issue. Issue is that climate change is bringing in new species and strains of the pathogens and insects, impacting the living system as a whole. And very importantly, the transboundary movement of these is creating havoc. Corona movement was primarily through human movement. Knowingly, unknowingly, willingly, unwillingly, we have been transferring this across the globe. And this is where we are. In this context, the spices are important. And I'll come to this point just a minute later. But at the same time, the whole world, and more so India, is facing the challenge of malnutrition. Malnutrition is quite rampant, and that's the reason why in global hunger index, we don't really fare well. We are placed much below as compared to some of those neighboring countries. If we compare, around 38, 40, close to 40% of the children below the age of 5 are actually stunted. And similar 22%, around 23% are actually wasted. Stunting, wasting, and also anemia, particularly in expecting mothers, which is again in turn impacting the child growth. So future, though we have a huge population, we have quite a number of brilliant people coming out. The mind development, the mental development is quite encouraging in some of those who are ruling global research, commerce, and so on and so forth. But malnutrition does impact a larger section of our population. We need to really address malnutrition. How do we address malnutrition? The government of India has actually built a comprehensive plan of action to address malnutrition. I was talking about development of new varieties. I talked about biofortification of crops. Even horticultural crops have certain deficiencies. And that's the reason why we have built these biofortified crop varieties. High provitamin A in case of cauliflower, where it was almost negligible. So yellow color looking cauliflower today is in the market. Similarly, high protein rich greater yam, protein which was very little, it has been increased more than twice in yam itself. The anthocyanin levels have also been increased both in yam as well as in sweet potato, and which were actually deficient or having very little quantity in terms of these nutritional factors. While we are taking pride in this, and that's the genuine reason why we are taking pride. If you all remember, on 16th of October 2020, 17 of our biofortified crop varieties were dedicated to the nation by Honorable Prime Minister of India, who spoke at length on biofortified crop varieties, highlighting the importance of these varieties. And that's the reason why their importance, their significance has been now communicated to public at large. While on one hand, I suggest and emphasize that all those biofortified crop varieties need to be promoted, taken to the end users as much as possible. But what is more relevant is developing more and more biofortified crop varieties in various horticultural crops that would address the malnutrition problem. First of all, having culinary diversity and huge culinary diversity in this country is of great relevance, but over years we have forgotten. Our food system has been narrowed and have been very restricted, particularly when both are working in families. Very little time is available for cooking. Our food system, if you see, is based on very, very limited number of natural foods and often is supplemented with processed food items. So in the process, we are losing out the strength, the traditional strength we had in this country. Through all of you, I would like to urge that let us further build this strength of having huge culinary diversity, consuming diversified food system, an array of vegetables and fruits, and their consumption should be promoted. And we all attending today, if we can start ourselves very well planning, strategizing, devising, and adopting Nutri-Thali, the nutrition thali. Thali means the plate full of nutritious food, all different kinds, the diversified food system. Enrich ourselves, our respective families. And if we can resolve this and plan it out for ourselves, plan it out for the farming communities, and ultimately planning out for every consumer in India and at global level, wherever malnutrition is prevalent, that would be a great contribution. And our Government of India's program of Poshan Abhijan, I think that's a great step in this direction. We are working, our Krishi Vigyan Kendra, the farm science centers are working relentlessly with the farmers, with particularly women, the Anganwadi workers, informing them, training them about the Nutri Garden concepts, The Nutri Garden not only have fruits and vegetables along with other crops, but also they have medicinal plants and the spice, all spice, representative spice crops, so that the immune boosting happens in the family itself. And that's very, very significant. And this message should be spread far and wide. All consumers must know this, that the significance of Nutri Gardens, which include, of course, the spices. The Spice Board, I would request, should make special efforts to promote Nutri Gardens, even in the terrace itself or in the rooftop if there is a shortage of space, to build such gardens in the pots itself, in the hanging pots itself, so that the nutrition of the family is made squarely. And that is what is very, very important and relevant to talk about. The Nutri Plate, the Nutri Garden, the nutrition framework, the biofortified crop varieties, diversified food system, and all these are the need of the day, need of the hour. And let's all put all our might, all our efforts together to move in this direction and deliberate for further detail and on the issues which are relevant in this regard. This is one aspect which is very, very crucial, where horticulture and spices and medicinal plants play very, very significant role. Today, Honorable Prime Minister emphasizes on doubling farmers' income. How do you double farmers' income? Only when you add horticulture crops to the field crops, go for processing and value addition, and not only in the process you contribute to nutritional security, but also you contribute to the income security and enhance income of the farmers. So this clarion call of Honorable Prime Minister has to be respected. How? By diversifying our food system, by resorting to cultivation of fruits and vegetables and spices and so on and so forth. And we can enhance farmers' income. And this should be one of the aspects of our deliberation. Honorable Prime Minister has given another call for making India an economic giant and enhancing our economy and making India a $5 trillion economy. This discussion was dented because of the setback due to COVID-19. But if we have to build it further from now onwards, how horticulture sector, spice sector, medicinal plant sector can contribute to making India a $5 million economy? Can we all agriculture sector and land sector together contribute $1 million to this $5 million economy that we are actually talking about? How do you really do? We can do by way of enhancing productivity, by being competitive in the global market. If our produce is not competitive with regard to price, you cannot have a global market. In fact, cheaper products from outside the world will actually saturate the domestic markets. The farmers will suffer. Our production systems will suffer. So here lies the key. The key is to enhance productivity. And we must strategize. We must plan it out. How do we really enhance our productivity? By way of breeding, by way of management, by way of good agricultural practices. We must focus on good agricultural practices. Good agricultural practices are essential not only for enhancing productivity, for profitability, but also for export, for food safety. Food safety has become a very important component of our export system. If you want to really win global markets, you have to have production of safe food, nutritious food, your spices when you are exporting, or the spices which India is exporting, unless they are safe, unless they are free from pesticides, unless they are free of other kind of chemicals, probably acceptance in the global market would be very little. So that's the reason why we have to be very conscious. Sanitary, phytosanitary requirements in the global markets have to be met squarely. I had the earlier discussion with the spice exporters, and this is a concern. And Spice Board and all of us together, we have a responsibility, and we have to put in serious efforts, double and triple our efforts to build scenario for not only producing safe food and building traceability in the process. Good agricultural practices implemented in the process. Smaller countries like Vietnam, who came and learned and studied in India, it's often cited as examples. They have taken back our own production practices and implemented them vis-a-vis those of global best practices. And they are able to compete in the global market. And I strongly believe that we, along with the Spice Board, along with the export houses, we should be able to do contract farming, promote contract farming through the new Agri Acts, and in the process provide all the inputs at appropriate level, which are used at appropriate time, and in the process produce safe food, nutritious food for global market, and enhance many times this export that we have. Why 1.1 million tons? Why just $3 billion US? Can we double it? And what should be the requirement to double this export? Is there no global market now? It's all closed for us, or we could be more competitive. Should be deliberated. And not just from the viewpoint of India, but from the viewpoint of global needs, global demands, how much of a demand supply analysis we have done. So global international symposium can deliberate this. The socio-economic aspects of spices. Where are the needs? Where are the requirements? Where India can chip in and provide adequate quantity of high quality safe spices, and in the process earn foreign exchange, not just to exploit the consumers of the global market, but in the process supplying the food needs and meeting the food needs of the globe and playing a major role there. I'm sure we should be able to deliberate and do that. I was looking at an analysis, which is a very, very interesting analysis. And this analysis is very revealing. And it talks about that how the global level, time is running out, so I don't want to really spend more time. But this global analysis is quite revealing. The data of 163 countries have been analyzed with regard to COVID-19. And this paper was published in 2020 in ACS Chemical Neuroscience Journal. And this reveals that the impact of COVID-19, particularly with regard to the number of persons per, say, 1 million population impacted by COVID. And it clearly revealed that the countries where the spice consumption is, per capita consumption of spice is relatively higher, the COVID infection was relatively lower And this is a meta-analysis of a number of countries, and it's quite revealing, and 163 countries to be very specific. And this particular inference is quite significant. So meaning that the spices that we have been consuming in this country, whether it is turmeric, whether it is ginger, whether it is cumin, whether it is coriander, or even the cardamom, small cardamom and large cardamom, and various others. I'll not go into those specifics. Our consumption is quite high, and certainly the infection rate is low, and death was also very, very low. The casualties are also very, very low. So this could be one of the regions. We do not know yet exactly, because further research is required. But if you see another paper published in ACS Omega, again in 2020, again revealing, and it says, of course, you don't include garlic in the spices, but the essential oil of garlic containing several organosulfur compounds and about 13 to 17 organosulfur compounds, they have been analyzed. And some of these compounds were found to actually inhibit the angiostensin converting enzyme 2, and you all know the receptor molecule for COVID, that is ACE2, and which is inhibited. And there is a clear evidence building up, published, and how they are inhibiting this. And there will be plenty of other studies and examples which are revealing. So I'll not go into those details, but this is not my job actually. But I just highlighted the importance of this. But how much work we are doing or globally have been done. India has been consuming spices, not in huge quantity, because huge quantity might lead to health problems. In small quantity, they are added to food. Based on what? It must have been based on evidences. Those experiments are not there with us today. These traditions in India have been built over centuries. India is an old civilization. And colleagues and friends, we must go back to our palm leaf inscriptions, descriptions, and study those. The role of spices in our health system. You'll find many undiscovered facts, undescribed evidences in our support. They could be based on solid observation. You don't require laboratory experiments for everything. Let's go back to the basics, the fundamentals, the traditions, the history that we have. So rich. Our cultural heritage is so rich. I am emphasizing because this is very, very important. The time has run out, so I emphasize on this. But the more important is how much experiments we do that build evidences scientifically through laboratory experiments. Very little. So I strongly believe that that's another area where we have to really intensify efforts, not only nationally, but globally, so that we discover new biomolecules having application in pharmacy, in human health system, human nutrition system, immunoboosting system, nutraceutical system. I believe very strongly there is plenty of scope for all of us to work in this direction and deliberate on those. How do we build tomorrow's entrepreneurship based on this? There is plenty of opportunity to build tomorrow's entrepreneurship based on this. And that should be deliberation on this. How do you build entrepreneurship models, new models of entrepreneurship, and create value chains? Export must drive these value chains. Farmers did not really think about the support price and things of that sort. There has to be value chains very well knit, well defined, strategically built, and they should be driving production, productivity, export, and contributing to enhancing income level of the farmers. I can contribute describing, and we should be actually addressing and building our systems. We are actually lagging behind. And Dr. Rehman, Dr. Gopal Lal, what we are exporting, we are including chili under spices. What we are exporting, where we are lagging behind, it needs a thorough analysis, and we'll certainly must do. And, a kind of in-house analysis where we are with regard to the major spice crops that we are working on. Turmeric, ginger, cumin, and coriander, so on and so forth, and black pepper, where we have lost out, the cardamoms, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot more to really deliberate in the country itself, if not at the global scale. So this symposium, certainly there will be many other things to talk about, but I strongly believe that the symposium provides a unique platform, not only to speak about what we have done, but also more importantly, to learn from others' experience. This international symposium has provided this opportunity for all of us, learn from others' experience, and build partnership, build a collaboration. And this is what is very, very important. And I'm sure you would be developing, as an outcome of this particular symposium, such partnership in future. Export should be promoted. And how do we really promote export? What are the bottlenecks, and how do we really address those bottlenecks by way of deliberation? And in discussion with the importing countries, I believe this would be provide an opportunity for doing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, delegates, I take this as my privilege to be present in this symposium and address to you on few of the issues which I thought were very relevant in the context of COVID. And this symposium cannot be at a better time. And this is the most appropriate time to talk about spices. And I'm sure this particular symposium would be used as the platform to build a information system on spices itself, on various facets of the spices. So addressing the issues which are emerging, including diseases, pests, and concerns in export, and so on and so forth, what I said. And I'm sure you all would contribute very, very significantly to build implementable recommendations for us here in India, for everybody else who are partnering from various countries. I wish this program, deliberations in the symposium, a great success. Wish you all the very best. Congratulations to organizers for having this particular symposium organized. Thank you very much for inviting me to address the symposium. Thank you very much.